The purpose of this item is to open up the discussion around what role council plays in terms of supporting, facilitating, encouraging informed voting at the referendum. As everyone I'm sure is aware, both the Yes campaign and the No campaign kicked off their formal campaigns last week, and information has been provided by the Australian Electoral Commission regarding the approach taken by both sides of the discussion / debate. The purpose of the report is to provide councillors with a number of the reference materials that have been provided to help inform the community, and beyond just providing access to that information through our means to our community members. The purpose of tonight's discussion is to discuss whether we want to take any other role other than or beyond just a facilitator in terms of connecting people with that information. I might press pause there and just see if anyone's got any other comments. The report does outline a couple of different approaches or options that council might take. So happy to respond to any questions that councillors may have in relation to those options, and just any views or opinions from councillors in terms of the subject matter at hand. Councillor Cobler.
Thank you. I've been asked by Councillor Inglis, who can't be here tonight, just to read out a statement on his behalf. He believes that we should always be apolitical and not align ourselves with any particular side or view. We should be sharing all the information for both the yes and the no arguments for the voice to Parliament, and I don't believe we should be, as an organisation, support one side or the other. That is not our role, as there will be an individual voting when the date is released, and we are not being asked to vote as an organisation.
Other views or comments? Councillor Campbell?
Yes, I agree that we are and should remain apolitical. One of the reasons I'm actually allowed to be on council is that it's apolitical. If we're going to start getting into that arena, I will have to resign, and that's a breach. I would be breaching my other job if I did. That's not me saying that if we do this, I'm going to. That's just a very clear boundary that I have to set. And I think as a council, we represent our city as a whole, and I think it's our job to present the information without having an opinion on it as a council. Our individual opinions are completely different, and I also think that this is a very contentious and touchy subject at the moment, and I don't want I would hate to see our council get in the middle if we're not apolitical about it. I think providing the information is great. Assisting people to be able to vote if they have an opinion and they want to vote is great, but I don't think we should align ourselves one way or the other, because it's going to put us in the firing line of someone else's agenda and someone else's it's a state political, federal political thing. We're not political, so I think providing information is great. Anything beyond that, I think, is stepping over a boundary that we shouldn't step over.
I'm just going to ask a few questions today, just for the purpose of the discussion, so not entering a debate per se. Where do you draw the line between being apolitical versus providing community leadership?
Anything that can sway an opinion or an inference can be drawn on what our opinion is as sorry. I believe that anything where there can be an inference drawn that we have an alliance one way or the other is stepping over that boundary. So if we are to provide information on the yes vote, we have to equally provide information on the no vote. And as a council, we have to say, we are providing you with information. If you've got any questions, this is where you go. Same as with anything else that we do. If we are seen to be leaning towards one or the other, then it's the same as if we're leaning towards one or the other political party. It's exactly the same. And my deepest concern is there is a lot of emotion, there is a lot of history, and a lot of generational trauma tied up in this whole thing that I think that we need to step away from and let the people that it truly affects have that voice, because that's what this whole thing's about. So providing the information, but anything that can say, well, while a council has a opinion, is crossing that line. And I think it's crossing the line from a political stand view, and it's crossing a line from a personal point of view. And as a Caucasian person that has really no ties, I don't think that I'm in the position to have that opinion. I think that's something that we should have our information, just as I want the information given to me, I think we should give it to others, and anything beyond that is a personal opinion. And anything beyond that where they want to find out more about how it's going to affect the actual people that's meant to represent is something that those people should give to them.
You won't be restricted to speak only once. We'll bounce this around a few times. Councillor Todd.
My opinion was that we weren't going to, I thought we weren't going to take a side per se. We weren't going to take the position of a yes or no vote. My understanding of the discussion we were having tonight was whether or not we provide information to the community, and I think it would be neglectful of us to not provide information from both sides of the fence to the community. I think it's a really important decision that needs to be made, and I think that people need to make an informed decision, and one of the ways that they will do that is by council, local government across the country, providing them with the adequate resources or information on how to access adequate resources to make their own decisions. I don't think, yeah, I agree we don't take a side, but I definitely think we need to be providing information from both sides of the fence.
Councillor Pond, Deputy Mayor Pond, sorry.
I agree that I think it's our role to get as much information out as possible for both sides. A lot of people are sitting on the fence because of the lack of information that has come out. And if we can be an advocate for providing that information, not for one party, yes or no, but for getting the information out, I think that will help our community to answer some of their unanswered questions at this stage. When it comes to the Aboriginal community, we're actually very divided on this. It's a very touchy, hot topic, and it's about 50-50, to be honest.
Councillor Koblikar.
I'd just like to say, out of the 4 items that we're being given for discussion, for me, number 1 is it, and I think that pretty much echoes what everybody has said around the table so far.
Councillor, I'll go to Councillor Simpson, then to Councillor Todd.
I agree with everything that's been said. I came in here with the intention of item 1 is my choice as well.
Councillor Todd.
I guess just a suggestion maybe that when we are providing information, we have a blanket statement that says we're not affiliated with either, or we're not, however you word it, you've got people who do that. We're not taking sides. We're providing the information for you to be able to make an informed decision. And on every Facebook post or every bit of information that we hand out or whatever, we have that very clearly stated that we are not affiliated with one party, with one opinion or the other. We're purely there for the dissemination of information.
Maybe on that note, I might segue to the question about how active we are and in what way we provide the information. We can do Facebook posts and just point people to website and let them self-serve themselves. At one end of the spectrum, we could create forums or opportunities for people to come together and either hear from someone talking about the yes or no sides, sharing their personal opinions, and or having a discussion about the pros and cons of the yes versus no. Is that something that councillors would be interested in, having something that's a more interactive process? Just in asking that question, just so it's clear, I am mindful that some people struggle to, take in lots of information that's in written form. So that's sort of one of the motivation behind that question. Do we need to create a forum where there can be a conversation around the pros and cons and presenting some of that information in a way other than the written form? I've got Councillor Simpson first on my screen.
I think we're here to give advice if required. I don't think we should be volunteering or organising a forum on the issue.
Councillor Campbell's next.
I think a forum with people attending would be a pressure cooker that we would have to be very careful organising. There is a huge amount of emotion around this subject in the community, and I would not want to go to that, because I think there's some people that would get fired up and would end up with a scandal, or it just seems like it's something that people would get incredibly emotional about. I would also say that if we're going to do that, we'd probably have to consider having a Pitjantjatjara interpreter there, so that if we do have people there that are cultural, because the cultural people may be drawn to something like that to have their say, and I would encourage inviting them, that we would need to have a Pitjantjatjara interpreter there to interpret what we are saying in case they're not fully fluent in English as well.
Councillor Todd.
Personally, I think I would prefer us to just direct the traffic as opposed to be involved in the discussions. I think that's where you can be perceived to be taking a side just from a comment you might make. So I would personally prefer that we just direct the traffic, direct people through website links, through information in their letterboxes, through pamphlets or whatever are available, to forums and things that already exist for conversations. That way it's not a council forum or a council owned anything. It's literally just the direction of traffic. Here's where you get your information on the yes vote. Here's where you get your information on the no vote. Here's where you can access forums. Here's where you can access whatever it is, but not actually us. I think it's fraught with danger, us creating forums ourselves. I personally don't think that, well, I know I'm not, but I don't think many of us would be well versed enough in the pros and cons of either side of the argument to be able to conduct those kinds of discussions.
Councillor Kobakar.
I would support a community forum or debate, whereas we had both the yes and the no camps to come and just present their argument.
Councillor Pond.
If we were to have a forum, I would suggest that we probably get someone independent coming in, like we had for our community WTF forum, because then it shows that we are not facilitating one side either way. I get your point about having a PIT interpreter, but we would not be able to cover all of the languages that we have here in Whyalla. And although Pitjantjatjara is quite common, probably the most common that we have here in Whyalla are Yankunytjatjara, who cannot speak English. So if we were looking for an interpreter, I'd probably go more that way. Whereas a lot of people who speak Pit, which I do, it usually comes hand in hand with English as well. They're very good with picking up English. Yeah, this is going to be a tricky one. This is going to be very tricky. But I think we do need to keep impartial. If we didn't have the forum one way, because I do get your point, Justin, about some people don't read. especially a lot of our elderly Aboriginal people, they do not read at all. If we were to go the Facebook way, maybe we could do some videotaping and get the information out verbally that way.
Mayor Stone?
It's just commenting on some of the things that have been said there. If it was to be a forum, I certainly believe it has to be totally independent speakers. They're from out of town, they're experts in their field, they're doing it regularly. So it's a balanced argument on both sides. I share Councillor Campbell's concern about the what ifs of people that might get a little bit too emotional, excited and cause issues. But that's not to say we shouldn't look at a forum, but ideally it must be with independent experts that are speaking elsewhere that come into town for that function. Is the government doing that in any respect? Do they have a team that does that we could look at? But I think if there is a forum, it has to be done by outside experts and well controlled.
Deputy Mayor Pons?
I'd just like to say I have been actually approached by a couple of the representatives from the Yes Group in particular. They wanted to come and present at our NAIDOC community event. I actually said no, that was not the time or the place, but they are looking at coming to the Whyalla show.
Yeah. Okay. I've sort of driving some of the questions. Have any councillors got any questions about this subject? Things we haven't touched on yet that you'd like to clarify or comment on? Councillor Campbell?
Just something that Deputy Mayor Pond just said, that would actually be a good idea, would be some tents just with information, separate groups at the Whyalla show, perhaps, was one way that a council could perhaps have a balance, and then it's a choice. People can go in if they want to, they can go to both and get both, and because both are there, it's impartial, apolitical, and it's a choice.
Okay, all right, so last call, any other comments on this one? I think the prevailing view is that we take very much just a post office type of approach in terms of directing people to the information. We can explore whether the government is looking at providing forums or media other than the written form to try and share the both sides of the discussion with people who may struggle a bit in the written form. And I think the idea of having a community forum at this point in time, there doesn't seem to be sort of majority support for that, so we won't progress down that path. We do have already, not that it was intended this way, it's by coincidence, we do have the luncheon on Wednesday with our Indigenous community, so we can over a coffee just have a chat with our Indigenous community members and attend that forum and just get a sense of what their views are on the subject. And then, you know, if there's a view that there's a need to do something else, we'll round back to the councillors in due course with a further suggestion if that becomes something that appears to be required.
Yes, I just thinking that I don't see anything wrong with us even making sure that the yes and no cases are accessible on our Facebook or our website. Here's the yes case, here's the no case, any direction elsewhere, and at least leave it at that. And we can do regular Facebook posts to refer to that. These are the two cases that are official. There's your information sources.
Councillor Campbell?
Yes, I would ask that it is maybe brought up as a thing at the luncheon, or perhaps organise a meeting with yourselves, with the elders in the area, so that they can have an opinion on it. Because I really do feel this is something I feel like almost like I'm intruding, having any sort of opinion on it, because it's not. It's something for them, and I think they should have a say in how we support the information getting out there, if that makes sense. It's for their community, it's for their people. So I think asking them how they think the community will receive it, like whether they want the reading. I don't know. I just think asking at the luncheon, asking them what they would like us to do to get the information out there would probably be a good move.
And I can support Deputy Mayor Pond's comments there about within the Indigenous themselves, this 50-50 aspect, because I've already at different functions been speaking to elders, and yes, coming across very much.
It's very heated.
Yeah.
Councillor Todd.
Just a comment around the timing. I mean, I believe the referendum's not got a set date, but sort of September, October, November. We're already at the end of July. Just
Okay. All right. I think, is there anything else that anyone wants to contribute on that item? Otherwise, we'll move on.
Only just to say that we will bring a report to the August council meeting so that we do formally, place on the council's agenda the approach that we're going to be taking in this space, being the, sort of the publication of information and the informing of the community. So we'll commence. I mean, we can commence from now, but we will bring that report to the August council meeting.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item. Council member ordinary and primary returns. I'll hand over to Irene.
Thanks, Justin. I have already tonight walked around and presented parcels of information, but tonight we wanted to provide opportunity for council members to workshop their related party disclosure forms and their ordinary returns. In your parcel of information and in a previous email to council members, we have provided copies of last year's return. This is simply an aid for you to be able to refer to. Obviously, if there's new information, that will need to be recorded. It is a requirement that these forms are completed within 60 days of the 30th of June, so we are already partway through that process. But tonight, we wanted to set aside some time to assist you in completing those forms and meeting our requirement under the Local Government Act. So my intention from here was to individually be available to provide assistance.
So councillors, if you want to grab your pen and start filling in the forms, I think that's maybe the most productive use of your time, unless you've already done it or you want to do it in your own time. But Irene will be here to help if you've got any questions or need clarification on filling in the forms. Is there, just in terms of time and process from here, they were the only two items that we had on the agenda, so we can have essentially a working session now for people to fill in paperwork. Is there any other items of business that anyone wants to raise tonight? Otherwise, what I might do is actually formally close the meeting, and then people can both grab some supper and or take some time to fill in the forms. Any other items of business?
So haven't spoken to you about this. I just went through my mind. I should report to council that at my request, the CEO organised a Teams meeting with the CEO of our local health network. I'd asked for an update and briefing on what's happening about midwifery. We will also be catching up with Eddie Hughes in the very close future, because the independent review should be just about complete. The question I posed to the local health network was, is this going to be released now or soon or later? He seemed to think that it would be released very quickly, subject to what the government does. In asking him what has caused the issue, he entirely put it down to workplace shortages. We are aware that the review will be looking at much more than just workplace shortages. He assures me on the questions I put to him that they're not sitting still. They're out there canvassing and they're still trying to fill the vacancies. But throughout his entire presentation, it did come across we're blaming a shortage on the workforce. And from what you hear elsewhere, I would think that the calibre of the woman doing the review will find any other faults with the system. So I was remiss, I should have mentioned that last week, but this meeting was last week, to update you, particularly if anybody's asking you, we're not just sitting here waiting. We have actually instigated that conversation, and we will be instigating a catch up with Eddie Hughes, who also previously had indicated it would be a very fast review. Once it's completed, then we're in the hands, I guess, of the government as to when anything will be announced. But just filling you in on that update last week.
The review, am I allowed to ask what areas that review looks into? Does it look into workplace dynamics?
My understanding is that it will look at everything. It's not just going to look at, from what I've read, what I've been told, what I've heard, it's not just going to look at what's stopping people. You know, why have we got a shortage, as if there's a labour shortage, or what might be some of the contributing factors as to why there's a labour shortage if perhaps the labour is already around. He did make mention about some of the issues they've got with lack of housing and everything that everybody else is hearing. But I just felt there was a concentration on it's a workplace shortage, a worker shortage. I believe, and from something Eddie Hughes mentioned to me, they will be looking at far more than that. They'll be looking at the intricacies of the whole situation here in Whyalla.
Excellent. Will they be talking to past staff as well to see if their matters?
I believe so. I believe from what I did read earlier in the piece, current, past, potential future. Why wouldn't you come to Whyalla if they're aware of those? My understanding is it's going to be a warts and all review.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, was that Craig Packard you were talking to? Yeah.
Okay, any other items of business for tonight? So if not, just in closing, I confirm that next week we do have a elected member briefing. It will be a confidential briefing by the Office of Hydrogen Power regarding the Port Bonython hydrogen hub. And we are also looking at the possibility of Department of Rec and Sport also providing a briefing depending on timing and logistics. So the Office of Hydrogen Power presentation, I understand, might be in the order of an hour and a half. So it's not a short, sharp and shiny one. It will be a bit of a deep dive into where things are at with the Port Bonython hydrogen hub. As I said, that one will be in confidence because I think the state wants to share some of the status in terms of discussions with the private sector proponents for that area. So with that, I'll close the meeting formally. Please complete your returns and grab something to eat before you leave. Thank you.